There's a little furry guy training me. We'll see if he settles. The question is something that I feel like is straight out of the mouth of my conditioning. And waiting for the words to come, the memory of the words to come. Is it true that there's really never a final me? No final accomplishment? No final me? The emphasis on, like, is it true? Is it really true? I hear all this talk about mindfulness and just this and moment by moment by moment, life coming and going and constant change. And I get that mentally, I get that. This is my conditioning talking, by the way. I get that, but is it really true? It's so easy to get, so easy to understand as a concept, a mental concept. The process of identity really can never understand it, though, because the process of identity is the process of trying to create something solid, trying to create a solid me. The body never misunderstands it. The body's always changing. Put food in and food comes out. Cut your hair grows out. Like, take a breath comes out. There's nothing held onto in the body. The body doesn't know permanence. It doesn't. Look at an infant. Look how quickly they evolve and change. How dramatic. And that's just the beginning. I mean, it seems like things get less dramatic. The form seems to change less dramatically, but I would question that thought. And I think it's important to ask this question, like, is it true that there's really just one, there's not really just one me? That there's no final arrival point, like, really? Because when it's allowed to be questioned, then it can be seen of the process of identification, the process of separation, identity being made. With MS, there are so many moments of realizing how much the conditioning process, the identification process, shape shifts and slips in and out of thinking it's let go, but coming back with a vengeance. Oh, that flare up passed, and now there's a relapse, and Jesus Christ, like, let me just be at peace. Let me just stay the same. I'm dying. Every time these changes seem to happen in a seemingly permanent way, like this loss, this death. And the process isn't always the same. There's a softening with time. The non-duality, as it's allowed to be more and more opened to and embraced, if that's makes sense. There's not always the same kind of deaths that happen, but the conditioning will never just go along with the change. It's interesting, I noticed this with media and just putting videos out there yesterday. Just had a bunch, and they were ready to be put out into the world, posted. It was just the next thing, the aliveness coming through and not knowing who will receive or watch or where this is going. But noticing after the posts happen, this slippery little conditioning around, oh, I'm done. I've arrived. And then some contraction, heaviness, some doubt, some shame, some feeling special, all of the things that come with separation, with feeling like there's a grasping towards solidity, which is the me. There's a grasping for a me. Oh, Chelsea did it. Chelsea's arrived. Chelsea's a star. Or whatever. Or Chelsea's a flop. It's so funny. It's really sweet to get to the comical place of it, because this is it, right? The continual, as long as there's conditioning, as long as there's an identification process, which in the most open of us, I would wager that the process still has its flutters. It's always going to churn up resistance to life. There's never an ending. There's never an end point. There's never a final me. There never was a final me. There was never an initial me to begin with. This being, Miss Chelsea, was never separate. There's never one final accomplishment that she's going to make so that she can rest and just be herself. The misunderstanding is what rest is, what being at ease with life is, which is not passive. It's not comfortable in the way that identity thinks comfort is, which is sameness, or yeah, there's no finding of other words, because the process is confused. It's seeking safety. It's seeking processes, trying to make itself separate and solid so that that solid thing can become safe. That solid person can become safe and removed and in a certain role where everything is known and understood and predictable in certain ways and acceptable in other ways. But there's no safety in that. That isn't safe, because it isn't true. That is all and a wheel spinning, and it's fine. It's like watching a movie. It's fine to watch a movie. But when you think the movie's your real life, then you get a little bit of astray, and you maybe neglect or add undue suffering for grieving for the character's losses, or aching for the character's heartbreaks, or being dependent and codependent on the character's storylines. Like, if there's a freedom to let that story move through and to continue to let life live, and actually that's more safe. The uncertainty, the constant change is actually, like, embracing that is strangely more safe. Or it's no less safe. It's more informed. That's the wrong word, but there really isn't a final me? No. There really is just this. Well, what do you think just this is? And if we really step into that, if just this feels like settling for something measly, or something contracted, or something heavy, or something less than anyone else, that's a thought. Nothing wrong with thought. And it's really helpful to know when a thought is limiting the experience of this moment. Just this unfolding, the freedom of allowing yourself to be constant change. Noticing when that's not allowed, how there's suffering at the reality of constant change. And even constant change can become an idea. Can there be a resting into feeling what it's like to never be a final person? And with a disability, with my disability, to never be a final version of myself. The identity wants to go to, oh, that's going to be me someday, with no mobility, no speech, no thought, no nothing. And I'm going to arrive there. That the fear goes to that place. The reality is, if that ever becomes an experience in this life, that's just what it is. It's experience, and that is dynamic and in flux, and the reality of what that might actually be from the outside is always going to be scarier than the reality of life dancing in whatever particular form it takes. And who's to say if that even is an image that will ever take shape? Maybe the image could look worse or better, and those are false words, because there's no worse or better. But yeah, there's no final arrival point. There's no click, post these images of yourself and become concretized as the person you always wanted to be. We know, if you have any form of social media, we know that the minute you post something, then the next thing arrives of, well, where are the responses, and where's the validation or invalidation from my peers? What's the next thing I need to post to create this identity? It's different if the posting is coming from no attachment and just a live expression. These forms of media are inherently bad. but they are a shadow of the mind. And so they can be very powerful in separating. They can be very powerful in creating an identity that we need to make solid and constant. And that's just not possible. It's not possible. So that's my answer to the question. Is it possible to finally be the person, the one person, to have a resting point in who I am? No, it's not possible. Yeah, I love you. I love the conditioning that comes up and articulates this question, and with kindness and love and some humor. No, it's not possible. And the humor can also point to, like, this will come up again and again and again, and that's not a problem. Doesn't mean that you've regressed into anything, or that your suffering is any better or worse, or that it needs to be, but yeah, it tickles a part of me of, like, the innocence of it, just wanting to keep asking that question from a perspective that's not really capable of getting an answer.